Are you familiar with Charlie XCX? Brat.
No.
When I say brat, you know what? Let's record.
Okay.
Are we recording?
Sure.
Fuck. Are we really?
Yes.
No, this is going to be another one of those intros. They all sound like this. I just sound so stupid in every intro. Are we recording? Are we?
Yes.
Okay. Cue intro music. Nice strumming of guitar.
I am Doug Friedman.
I am Kenzie Janest.
And this is Your Mental Breakdown,
the podcast. Can I ask you a question? A relevant question about pop culture?
Another one, or is that it?
Another one.
Yes.
Did you have a brat summer?
Oh my God. What are you doing to me?
It's not even a joke. There's no punchline. Did you or did you not have a brat summer? I already know the answer.
I don't know Charlie XCX. So I can't say.
You didn't. The answer is no. You absolutely did not have a brat summer.
But I think, okay, here's what I think. I'm gleaning.
What do you think? Like me just saying that, what are you envisioning right now as a brat summer? What does that mean?
That brat is like for yourself. Like you're thinking of yourself. Like you're doing it for you. It's not like being a brat.
Well,
you're like taking you might be, but you're taking it on as like, it's not a bad thing to be a brat. I'm going to stop being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a brat, just take care of myself. So that's what I think, but it's probably all spurned by a song that features
an album.
Actually. There you go.
A whole album called Brat. And it's in a very nice neon chartreuse green. You really missed this boat? It was a really large boat, like a yacht.
Really?
Big old Titanic-sized yacht. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed it.
Okay, well, I hopped on the train maybe late June-ish, and the train just went fully off the tracks. Like, I went to dance parties that were brat themed. If you saw anyone wearing like lime green, they were having a brat summer.
Yeah, I don't get out much.
Yeah. So that color, olive green you're wearing, implies to me you did not have a brat summer. That is a very subdued green. Were you taking care of others a lot this summer?
I was.
Yeah. You were in nature a lot, weren't you?
It's true.
Yeah.
So had I been out in the world and out in the city and out on the town, I could wear lime neon green.
Yes.
And be taking care of my needs, not everybody else's.
Charlie really owns and I think reclaimed the word brat and the concept of being a bitchy little girl who just lives her life for herself. She's a 365 party girl. That is her whole aesthetic. That is her vibe. And she owns it. So that's it.
Wait.
Okay. Is it coming back?
Yeah.
You've seen this. To be fair, I didn't really know her before the Brat album.
Right.
So I went to the concert. It was called the Sweat Tour. Tour. With her and, have you heard of Troye Sivan?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually not that
surprising. You're making me feel old.
I felt old.
And outdated and
Doug,
out of it.
Doug, if you feel old... Well, yeah, no, if I felt old, you feel very old. Hold on. I felt extremely old at this concert. Me and my best friend went. We're 31 at the time of recording. We are 31. And we went to this show and it was all Gen Z, Gen Alpha, maybe even. The low-rise pants.
I don't even know what Gen Alpha is.
What?
There's a Gen Alpha?
Yes, it's the generation after Gen Z.
The's another generation?
What are you talking about?
How many generations are there out there?
Dude, Gen Z is already in their 20s. So of course
you're saying that like that's old.
It is, but I'm saying
those are still
that, like,
kids to me. So wait, so Gen Alpha is like 15-year-olds?
Yeah, like the kids that are in junior high and high school right now. That's my understanding. But everyone looks older than we did when we were that age, and they're wearing Y2K. I'm 31, Doug. The whole joke of the night was like, millennials get shit done. Like, we know what we're doing. We got in and out of that show like it was fucking nothing. Like, everyone was wearing low-rise pants. Y2K style. Do you know what that means? Like the year 2000.
Yeah, I remember that.
You're familiar with that? Yeah.
Sure.
So that
but they weren't even born then.
They were not even, but that's why it's vintage.
Wow.
It all comes back every 30 years.
You want to hear something that will date me?
Of course.
And all the people around me and my generation?
Yes, please do.
So when 9/11 happened, we were of age and we remembered that, right? As like, wow, this is a pivotal paradigm shifting, huge thing that happened.
Yeah.
And at some point, there are going to be teenagers and 20-somethings that just know about it from a history book.
Yes.
Right?
That's already happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2001 was a long time ago.
Sure.
It was 23 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of the people that you're talking about now weren't born when that happened.
Yes.
So 23 years ago, they're within 23 years.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Math.
Yeah.
Doug was just digging on me for being bad at math, you guys.
We established that earlier.
This is why I don't handle insurance.
Off camera.
Because I'm a therapist, okay? I love my job.
You love like 15% of your job.
Which is actual therapy.
Right. Which out of 100, how much would that be?
No, don't do this to me. 15
Good.
hours.
Yes.
If it's 100 hours and we're 15%, okay, that I can do.
Okay.
And that's the extent of it. Now you do anything else and you'll reveal me to be a complete fool.
How do you tip people at restaurants?
Oh, I just double the first number.
Oh, you double the tax?
No. Like if a bill is $45, I'm going to give them an $8 tip.
So if it's $45, you don't give $9, you give $8.
Yeah, but I usually, like, this is what my parents taught me. I double the first number and then maybe add $1 or $2 just in case. Now, is that actually 20%? I'm not sure. And if it's not, we're cutting this because I'll seem like an asshole.
No, that is.
It is, right?
Yeah. One of Kim's favorite lines was, math, solve your own problems.
Ooh, that's good. Oh, Kim, that's good.
Yep.
Yeah, because I don't want to. I really don't want to.
I know. I got enough problems. Numbers doesn't have to be one of them.
No, I've got 99 problems. And how does that go?
Oh, I can't say it on air.
I got 99 Oh, right. It just came back to me.
It's a bad word.
It's a bratty word because we're having
I
it's
got
not
99
even summer
problems
anymore.
and a brat ain't one.
And a brat ain't one.
That's right.
It means nothing and everything, you know? Like, what does it actually mean?
God, that's so millennial.
But do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't actually mean shit.
Well, no, it does mean shit. It's describing what somebody's mood and affect might be like at a given time.
Sure, like we can't afford to buy a home, and that's just sucks. It's sad, you know?
Right. It's sort of that kind of apathy that
totally.
typifies
Yeah.
what that means. So when you say, oh yeah, I'm so millennial about that.
Yeah, it's because of the
That's
avocado
apathetic.
toast that I make, though. Can you believe? That was a meme for a long time.
Avocado toast?
I think it was an actual article that was written, like an offensive article that was like, millennials are spending way too much money on like fancy avocado toast at restaurants, and that's why they can't afford to buy homes. I swear to God, this was the thing.
But that would be true of people in my generation too, because that would happen. It would be true of anybody.
But it's because avocado toast is like the thing, or it was the thing.
I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Avocado toast?
Yeah. I love avocados.
We've taken
I like
so many
some toast.
turns.
And I like, you smash avocado on toast and you go, there,
pretty good.
it's avocado toast.
Yeah,
now $12, please.
That's my problem. It's not worth the amount of money that it is.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's absurd.
You know what is worth the amount of money?
Subscribing to this podcast.
Wow, look at you. That's right. And if you want to subscribe, Mr. Plant.
My God, that plant is brat. You know why that plant is brat?
Why?
Because it's living his best life. And it's green.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is green and it's thriving. Doing absolutely
slaying.
Nothing.
Absolutely slaying.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, that's very
soaking
brat.
in the water, soaking in the sun.
See? You
That's
get
right.
it now.
That's
That's
right.
very brat. Just own it. Own whatever bad things you're doing.
And
That's
if you
brat.
want to own some bad things,
Go to therapy.
go to therapy. Find us on social media at your.mental.breakdown. You can email us at info@yourmentalbreakdown.com. Kenzie's home phone number, her landline, is 867-5309.
8675. Wait, isn't that a song? Okay. Okay.
There you go.
I got there.
Yep.
Couldn't tell you what it is, but
All
I know
right.
it. All right.
Let's step out of the way. You'll listen to Sarah and what bratty antics she's up to in her summer.
Oh, she is giving brat in the best way.
You think?
In this session?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Huh.
Oh yeah. She's owning it.
Nice.
She's made a lot of progress.
she does own it. Yeah.
She fucking owns it.
She does.
It's amazing. That's a juicy, juicy sesh.
Well, y'all soak it in and we will be back to break it down in a bit.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
What's going on?
Can you already tell I'm like stress breathing?
I see the vape in hand. Yes. Yep.
Well, firstly, I'm going to give myself credit because this is actually something that is pretty huge.
Okay.
And I feel like I have been dealing with it quite well considering who I am. Essentially, daughter has a best friend. We've gone to the same school as her and her mom for the last 13 years. They're the same age. We lived in the same tract when I was married. So all that to say, I know this woman for many, many years. She's not a friend in the sense of like we hang out outside of just chatting while we're standing in line waiting for our kids or when we're at school events. We are friendly. Daughter spends the majority of her life at this woman's house. It happens almost every single weekend that she spends at least one night and or day over there.
Right.
Whenever mom asks me if daughter can go and hang out, I'm always like, yeah, absolutely, friend. Can come here too and hang out. Like, this can go both ways. The majority of daughter's other friends will come here and stay a whole weekend. I'm used to it. We do that as moms.
Right.
But this relationship started feeling very one-sided. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm just reading into it a little bit. Maybe it's not really a thing. And I kept making excuses like mom has a much bigger house and she has a huge swimming pool in her backyard, which of course for teenagers kicks ass. But this last weekend, I get a text from mom on maybe Thursday. And she says, hey, Sarah, myself and my husband, we're going to Coachella for the week. So we're going to be gone the whole weekend. So friend will be by herself. I'm asking my sister to watch her over at my house. Can daughter hang out? And I said, absolutely. Why doesn't friend come here? We're home. There was no reason whatsoever that her daughter couldn't stay here the night. Mm-hmm. And her response was, oh, we love having daughter over. Ha, 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 ha. So I'm like, okay, something's fucked up. Something is going on and I'm not a part of it. Something's happening and I don't know what it is. Right. So I let it go for the weekend because I knew they were off to have fun and do their thing. And I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But when they got back, I texted her and I said, hey, can you give me a call when you have a sec? I was like, look, I don't read any of this the wrong way. Maybe I'm the one overthinking it or reading into it. But it's starting to feel weird to me that I trust you with my daughter, sometimes for an entire weekend, if she wants to stay there. Right. And you won't even allow your daughter more than a 5-minute visit to my house. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Right. I didn't say what the fuck, but I sure. said, am I wrong in thinking that this is a little weird? And she was like, no. She's like, you're not wrong. Mm. So she's like, I'm so sorry. I knew I should have come to you and talked to you about it. But the person who told me this thing said, don't ever talk to her about it. She'll get so angry and she'll make a huge deal of it. So she says, I was told that you grew up in the children of God. Now, this is very specific. This is not a cult. This is in the children of God. The only person who knows this is my ex-husband. Obviously, he told his now ex-girlfriend, who was a big, fat, giant asshole. I am like learning more and more ridiculous things about her. So she says, when I heard the name, the Children of God, I went on Google and I did a deep dive and it freaked me out. And I said, that's fair. I was 100% validating her in that. I would also freak out as a mother. But also as a mother, the first thing I would do is go to that person and say, hey, I heard that you grew up in this freaky cult. It really scares me. And now I'm nervous. So here's the thing. Obviously, I know who I am. And I know how much of this part or this cult is even a part of me, which honestly, on a day-to-day basis, it is not at all. It hasn't been since I was 15 freaking years old. So I appreciate that she doesn't know that I didn't just leave this cult a year ago. Right. And it gets even weirder. Then she goes on to say, they also told me that you have about 10 people living in your house, including your parents. And whenever one of your siblings comes to visit that doesn't already live there, you kick your kids out of their rooms and put your family in your children's rooms. And I'm just like, okay, what the actual fuck?
Wow.
How would anyone even know that? Even if it was true. So, of course, everything she's telling me, it's even to her, I think she heard it coming out of her mouth and it sounded very ridiculous as she was saying it. So on one hand, I'm validating her as a mother, freaking out. Oh my God, the sex cult, her parents, she, family full of people who were in a cult, and I get it. It can totally get crazy. From my standpoint, I'm pissed. Like, one, because there's no reason that this is anyone's business, is number one. Number two, not a single person in my life knows about my background.
Right.
Unless I was married to them or they're my therapist. So how can you victimize somebody for being victimized? So there's a part of me that's kind of struggling with, and maybe I'm just feeling sorry for myself. Maybe I'm just feeling like, oh my God, how fucking dare they? I don't really know what I'm feeling. I was very careful to make sure that my conversation with mom ended very agreeable. We are friends. In fact, at the end, she was like, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have just come to you. The fact that you called me and you were just completely honest about everything makes me feel so much better. Friend can go over there whenever you want. She can stay however long. Like, we were good. Obviously, as soon as I hung up, I'm like, okay, what other moms do I know? I'm trying to figure out where the fuck this came from, because mom wouldn't tell me who told her.
Right.
Which is fair. I get that. But what's not fair is that there is literally things being said about me as a person, which are affecting my children. And there's basically nothing I can do about it unless I get a, fucking sign and stick it in my back and say, I left the cult at 15 years old. Please come and talk to me if you have questions. Like, what the fuck? What am I supposed to do? Yesterday, I just I kept saying, there's literally nothing I can do about it. So all I can do is just keep being who I've been being for the last 15 years of my kids' lives and, hope that the right friends stick. I don't want my kids to be punished because of my background of abuse, which, again, I didn't fucking choose.
Right.
That was done to me.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm being doubly, I don't know.
I know
I just gave you so much to digest. I just dumped a bunch of shit on you.
Right.
I don't know that you even had time to kind of digest any one of the pieces whilst I was throwing it at you.
I digested pretty much all of the pieces that you threw at me and then some.
Okay. See, this is why I like you, Doug.
That whole time you were telling me that story, you did not vape. You did not over enunciate. You did not get all worked up.
I did use a lot of F words.
But you weren't overly angry. You were actually recounting something that was very disturbing, and you handled it not only in the moment incredibly well in terms of integrity, you retold it to me incredibly well, incredibly calm. You even prefaced it by saying, okay, well, I'm, how I handled it pretty well, but let me tell you this thing. Cause if you know me, this thing was huge, but it's the kind of thing that it could have really triggered you and could have really thrown you. And that justice warrior that you can be sometimes would have kicked into high gear. However, what I saw is you got a gut instinct about something and you followed it. You trust your guts pretty well. I've learned this about you. So your gut was telling you something. So you picked up the phone and directly called this woman. Great. And you weren't accusatory. You weren't defensive. You weren't offensive. It was a sense of inquiry, which we've talked about. And the part that could have really thrown you into a reactive phase didn't. Of course, you're going to ask for who told you. But for you, I think that's because I don't like being misrepresented or misinterpreted. So if I'm misrepresented, I want to actually show them who I am.
Well, yeah, there's literally one thing in that whole thing, of her whole vision of me. There's one thing that's true.
Yeah.
And that's that I was born into a
right,
cult.
Exactly. Which I didn't have control over. But as soon as I had control, look at what I've done.
Yeah. And I did. I broke it down for her. I told her, and I did make a very, very conscious effort to validate her feelings, because I do appreciate those feelings. I can see from an outside perspective.
I'm going to put a pin in that for a second. You know, that idea of you validating her feelings. We'll come back to that. What you did was not reactive. It was being present with her and really letting your integrity come out and letting who you are really come out, which it sounds like you did. For her to end the phone call going, oh, I'm so glad we talked. You know, friend can go over anytime, no problem. I feel so much better.
Yep.
Wonderful. How you told me about this was also not reactive. This is like, oh my God, one of the things I haven't even told my kids yet, some parent found out and fabricated, and holy crap. And now it's impacting my child's life because, you know, her best friend isn't allowed to come over. But here's the thing that I want to put the pin in, and I want to look at it now. You validated mom's feelings. Great. What about yours? Talk to me about your feelings.
Well, in fact, in the phone call, I even told her, I said, look, I 100% appreciate, and it actually makes me think of you even higher as far as your motherly instincts. And I appreciate that your mode was protect my child. I really do. I felt, and I told her this, I said, I feel a little bit hurt that our children maintain such a close relationship. Her and I talk all the time for working out pickups and drop-offs and who's taking who where. I told her I feel hurt that you didn't just come to me and say, look, this is what I heard. Help me out here. Because it would have then given me a chance to explain months ago. So she is significantly older than me, which also to me, I don't know why that's important to me, but somehow to me, with age, you should also gain wisdom. And wisdom is confronting a situation. If I said, oh yeah, no, you want to come and join my sex cult? It's, you know, Thursday nights are free walk-in. Every other night there's a cover charge. You know, all 10 of us that live here, we swap rooms. I make sure the bed, I mean, what the fuck, right?
Right.
If that was really what was going on, then I would be totally happy to tell her about it. But it's so ridiculous. I really told her this. I said, it's just what you told me is so ridiculous that I can't even get upset with you about it. I do find it hurtful that she believed that about me. But what I told her was hurtful to me was that she didn't come to me and just be honest with me. You know, just ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I noticed a couple of things. First, that you were able to say that I felt hurt. Yes. Then it was some of our greatest hits, you know, the deflecting with some humor, right? Putting that in there. You did get into a little enunciation, a little bit, not much. And some of that old nugget of it's nonsense. It's nonsense. How could they? It's that being misunderstood. It's that she believed something about you that you don't have any control over. There is some residue of that frustration, that anger, that hurt. Mm-hmm. That's there. And, you know, you handled it. You can still be angry. You're allowed to be, being hurt and frustrated that this fucking thing that you had no control over is still following you around.
And something you just briefly touched on a few minutes ago was also something I haven't even told my kids. So it's almost like someone just ripped all my clothes off and made me, and I'm standing naked in front of 100 moms waiting to pick up their kids from school.
Yeah.
It's like, it's something to me that is so private in a sense, because I was a victim. This is something that is already difficult for me to accept that it happened to me. So to now have a situation that is not only affecting my children, but it's affecting me. Every time I now go and I stand at that school, I'm going to be looking around wondering how many people are thinking about joining my fucking sex cult.
Yeah, it's walking around with a scarlet A, It's not that you wear the A, it's that everybody else is looking at you, talking about it, pointing at it, and adultery is one thing. Like, fine, you can own that if you did that.
She made that choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't even make the choice.
Right. It's this thing you didn't have control over that is still having an impact on you. And that piece about your kids don't even know. I mean, at some point we might be talking about, how do you want to let them know? When do you want to let them know?
Yeah, there's a part 2 to this. I actually went to daughter afterwards and talked to her. I told her, I was like, look, I didn't believe that it was necessary for you kids to know that, because it's a horrible thing to even have knowledge of, for one. And it's even more horrible to know that your own mother was affected by this. That's a hard thing for any child. And I just didn't think it was something they needed to hear about. They already have so many emotions going on and so many things. Trauma, like, even if I get hurt or they hear their dad say something super mean about me, it hurts them. They come here and they cry for me. So imagine what they would feel if they knew what had happened to me growing up. That's a lot for them. But I did tell her, I said, look, who knows? It may come out and you're more than welcome to hear all about it.
Had you made up your mind that you were going to tell daughter about it?
Yes. Well, the reason is because mom said, no, first she goes, do your kids know about this? And I said, absolutely not. No one should know about this. Certainly not my children. I have not had that conversation with them. And so she was like, okay, I have not told friend anything either.
Sure, you'd love to kind of live in a world where your kids never have to know about this thing. But I think the reality is, when it is the deep, dark secret and has this power over you, it has this power over you. When it's just something that happened to you, then it doesn't have that much power, when you name the thing, right? So walk me through a little bit of how it went for you with daughter. Tell me about your experience.
I started out by telling her, because she kind of got the same weird feeling I did this last weekend when friend wasn't allowed to come here. And she did ask me about it. Right. So I started out the conversation with her saying, I just wanted to let you know that I did speak with mom and we've sorted everything out. And daughter was like, oh, what was it? Why, what was the reason? Friend said it was because her mom was worried you had your family over. But I prefaced it with, this wasn't something that I wanted you guys to know about. At least not at this point. When you get older and you got interested, what cult did you grow up in, mom? Fine. But I didn't want to. The fact that this is now circulating the school, I feel like it's better coming from me than you hearing the lies that are out there. And I said, as far as my background of, because I've always told my kids, oh, I grew up really weird. My parents were missionaries and we traveled all over the world and we did crazy things. That's sort of the extent of what I've told them. I said, the rumor going around is that I grew up in a cult. And I said, and that is not wrong. I was born into a cult. I didn't tell her the name. I asked her if she wanted to know the name. She's very sensitive.
Right.
So just like
Right.
the little tiny bit of information I did give her, she already started getting sort of teary-eyed.
Right.
So I didn't push it, but I said, if you need to know or you want to know or you hear the name of it going around school, please come to me and we'll go through the research together.
Right.
And I'll tell you the extent of my experience, because there's people who suffered far worse than I. So,
Right.
I want her to have some perspective, some scale for, oh my God, how much did my mom suffer?
Breathe. Take a breath. No. No. Put the vape down for a second. Take a real breath. Just slow yourself a little bit, because I can hear you ramping up a little bit just in retelling this, which is okay. But I want to honor how you did this by us calming your system down a little bit, so we can really sit with what you went through and how the actual conversation went. You did it with such grace. It was, here it is. I want to honor that it took more out of you than you realize.
Yeah. Thank you. At one point, when I said, okay, so here's what I have to tell you. There's a rumor going around school that I grew up in a cult, etc., etc. So once I was done, daughter says, Mom, one day, girlfriend was yelling at dad and she couldn't think of anything else to say. And her final comeback was, well, I wasn't the one who married a fucking cult member. So daughter is like, I didn't really understand what she meant by that.
Right.
But, it's there. It's circling my kids. It's all becoming a reality of something I need to deal with. I'm having a hard time because if I did something wrong and it was starting to circle and it was becoming something I was going to have to deal with that would be so much easier for me than something circling and something
Right.
coming around, and it's going to be something I have to deal with. That is trauma from my past. That is nobody's fucking business. It's like the fucking gift that keeps on giving. You're fucking born into a cult, and no matter what the fuck you do, no matter who the hell you become, this shit just stays with you. That is my take on this whole thing. It is very sucky.
It is very sucky. It also doesn't have to be the scarlet letter that you wear, but it might be the scarlet letter people see. And that sucks. You're right.
And there's nothing I can do about it, right?
Nope. Look, I will, for the rest of my life, I will be the guy whose therapist wife killed herself. Okay. I can't get away from that. I don't hold that every day as what's defined me and who I am and how I am. It's a part of my story, not all of it. As you heard me talk about it, I'm pretty transparent about it. And it's one of those things where if you want to know about it, I'll tell you about it. And I think you've long held the same. If you want to know about it, I'll tell you, but I'm not going to offer it up to them. And it's interesting because it sort of forced your hand to some degree. I think you were already very well prepared for it by virtue of who you are and how you are.
I literally told daughter, I am so glad we're having this conversation with almost a year of therapy behind me. That was one of the first things I said to her. I would have otherwise gone in there and been like hyper and stressed and, probably would have gotten her super hyper and stressed. But all in all, it felt like the conversation with Mom. I believe I handled it with a lot of the tools that I've been learning about. The residuals is how I'm handling it for me personally. I'm struggling with the one side that you call the justice warrior, but this time on my own behalf.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the other side is the facts. If people are listening to lies about me, I want them to listen to the facts about me, but it's out of my control. Besides going to every single person in the school district and
Right.
saying, here is a 10-minute elevator pitch on my fucking life. I don't know. I think that's the part of me. I feel good about how I handled mom and how I handled daughter. I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure that I have completely figured out how to handle me. Do I just leave it? Do I just let it go? That's what where I was at yesterday. I was like,
Yeah.
fuck them.
Here's the interesting thing to me. A couple interesting things. So being a justice warrior for yourself is new. You've been
Yes.
able to do that for other people, but you do it for other people with such vigilance. The way that you're talking about it now, I don't know that you're being a justice warrior for yourself. I think you're just open.
Okay.
If you wanted to go to the school and go around and tell everybody, that's being a justice warrior. I don't think you have to go to war. This is something where you are, if you remember me talking about the Green Beret versus the Boy Scout, that idea of being so prepared for something versus just knowing who you are and how you are, and that's the preparation. It's just being you. You Green Beret
Yep.
the hell out of this. Knowing myself for the past year so intimately that I could just talk to daughter about this and be fine. And again,
Yeah.
you did it beautifully with such grace. Is it frustrating? Is it annoying? Did it trigger you, anger you? Absolutely. Absolutely. You are still a human. So it didn't come out with mom, but it might have come out after that. It might have triggered something inside that hasn't come out yet. And that's why I say hit the bag if you want.
Yeah. Like even with boyfriend, I explained everything to him like I explained it to you. I feel like I was right in the pocket of that. Like I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting and odd, but I can deal with this. But in here, there's still a trigger, which I don't know will ever leave. You know how when we first started therapy, you would say you are a trauma survivor, and it made me super uncomfortable.
Yep.
There's still an element. I can now embrace the trauma survivor part. The more I embrace that, the deeper I go into having to accept the fact that I was traumatized. I was brutalized. I was a victim. That's what I was. And I was a child, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Right.
So over this year, we've discussed how I became the person who should have been protecting me. So now I feel like I'm here and I'm learning about me and I'm accepting all these things. And then bam, I'm being victimized again. And there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't care, and part of me really fucking cares.
This is where it brings up, this is re-traumatization. It brings up what you went through. It brings up those emotions.
Yeah.
That's where, I want it to come out. I don't want it compartmentalized. That's handling it. I don't want you to handle it. I want you to beat the crap out of the punching bag.
Okay.
There's going to be some residual trauma that gets stirred up. I think you just need to physically get that out. That's the scream into the pillow we used to talk about. And that's, I mean, look, I am either well-adjusted or horribly not, because I will go around and if, I stub my toe or the fridge, I close the fridge on my hand or, whatever it is, I will let out a giant either fuck or Jesus Christ, one of those. And the whole house will shake. And anybody in the house will just look at me and go, oh my God, are you okay? And right after I let it out, I go, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
because you got it out.
Right. Exactly. I don't know. Is that the most
love
well-adjusted? Probably not, but that's cool. Works for me. You know,
Yep.
and
I'm actually okay with that. I'm
Right.
okay with that. And I think I do stuff. Maybe, I mean, don't have a huge yell in me, but whenever I do, like, I bang into things all the time. It's gotten better since my operation, but man,
now that you can see,
these stub toes and the stubbed like tips of your fingers, you're just like, girl.
Oh yeah.
It's a good example of just kind of going, it's the screaming into a pillow, just letting it go. Like, I think I'm just going to go back to yesterday where I was like, you know what? As long as my kids are okay.
I really do want to honor how you did this as a function of how you are, period. You know, Green Beret all the way. You know, that's how you did it. It wasn't that, wait, I need to get this perfect. I need to prepare. How am I going to do that? You have come a long, long way. And in telling me the story, you were pretty laid back in how you were talking about this. Mm-hmm. I would think because you know who and how you are. And what we just did was not you compartmentalizing something and holding on to it and just handling it and carrying it around with you. You opened the compartment. You showed me what was inside. We talked about it. Cool. Now it no longer needs to be compartmentalized. It's out. It's done.
Yeah.
There might be some residual, but I will say, and here's my tag for this one. I would say we almost need a 2-sided t-shirt for you that says, relax, nothing's under control, and keep calm because Sarah can handle it.
I like it, Doug. I like what you did there.
I'm sorry that got out the way that it got out, but I absolutely love how you handled it, processed it, went through it with grace.
That means a lot to me. It does. I am learning, and it's a really good feeling when you know that you're in the right space. You know, I always knew when I fucked it up or when I got too, stressed out about something or when I let it affect me too much. And I didn't feel that in this situation, only in my own soul.
Yeah.
But really my instinct is to just say, nothing is under control. Like, what can I do? There's literally nothing I can do about it. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being you this past week.
No, thank you, Doug.
You're very welcome.
You literally probably saved my life over this last year. I'm not even exaggerating. So many things. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so glad I've been having therapy. Thank you, Doug.
And we're back.
What? And we're back. Can I do it? Why not?
You just did it.
I just completely stole it from you. Sorry.
Bring it.
Wow, this sesh. Wow.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say. Well, probably too much to say. But I'm going to start from the back here because when she said, you literally saved my life, right? And you had just previously self-disclosed about your partner. And I'm just thinking to myself, what does it feel like, especially for Doug, to have somebody say, you literally saved my life? We're starting with a very hard-hitter personal question, but couldn't help myself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't connect that to talking about Kim.
Oh, interesting.
No,
okay.
It doesn't hit me that way. I mean, because what I do as a therapist, it's separate. It's work is work and personal is personal. That's partly how I can share things from my personal life.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting personal about it.
That's a good segue into you actually doing that bit of self-disclosure, because she was talking about wearing this scarlet letter, right? Like wearing the A. I'm praising you because I think you did self-disclosure in such an eloquent way, and to me is such a good example of how self-disclosure should be used in therapy, because you didn't make it fully about yourself. You didn't completely go down that path. Like you were literally just naming a parallel and trying to validate her experience by saying, look, we could fully identify with our biggest thing that people perceive us to be, right? Like she's the cult survivor, the person who was in a cult member.
Right.
You're the person whose wife killed themselves or whatever. So I think you pointing that out, but then like very quickly getting back to her life and just, I don't know, I really liked it, that moment. Because she did for a second go, oh, like she felt it, right? Like she could have tried to take care of your emotions, but you weren't getting emotional about it. You were literally just giving the example.
which, and a little meta, what you just said, you're saying it to me because we're breaking down the therapy session.
Yeah.
If you and I were talking personally,
Right.
and you personally said to me, because your therapist's wife killed herself, whatever, be like, whoa, that's pretty flippant.
Yeah.
Like what?
Right.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
And that would stop us. So I said it to her in a way that was almost flippant.
Yes. Like unemotional, just
Right.
factual.
Unemotional, factual, like here's a stamp that I'm going to carry around forever. And it's about the stamp.
Yeah.
And I'm highlighting something. I never would have said that to her if she didn't know this about me already. So she does know this about me. We've talked about it.
Okay. Yeah. In a different context, it felt appropriate to bring up the first time.
Yeah. Because I was highlighting something else. I would never say what I said to somebody for the first time. Right. And if there are listeners that are listening to us for the first time and heard me say that in a session, they might go, what?
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But recognize that this is a therapy session with somebody that I've been working with for over a year.
Strong rapport.
And we've talked about this already, and we've made it about her, not about me. I've given her space, so if she had questions about it, she could ask me about it. But in this session, and even in this breakdown, we're just noting it because it's something we've already talked about, and it's not about me. So your question, Kenzie, well, how does it feel when somebody goes, oh, wow, you saved my life? Like, do you connect it? No, I don't connect it because it doesn't mean the same thing in that context.
And I understand that because the context was very much like it was an intervention. It was a tool. It was not like this emotional self-disclosure on your part, right? To try and get like in the soup with her, right? Like it was very much an intentional, pragmatic kind of decision to share the parallel.
Similarly, if I mentioned the scarlet letter, like, well, wearing a scarlet A, if I was talking to somebody who had committed adultery or whose partner did,
yeah, which I think you mentioned actually in this.
Then it might be different. It might hit them different. They go, whoa, wait a second. I was just cheated on and that felt horrible. And you just said that?
Too close.
What?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this is so wildly different. It's not the heavy emotional thing. It really could have been anything, right? But just because there was enough distance.
Well, and I said something that is shocking to many in a flippant way because she's trying to carry, I grew up in a cult. Like, yeah, it's no big deal. I grew up in a cult. And yet it is shocking to many who don't already know.
It is.
Which is what this whole episode or session for her was about.
It really is. And I think the best thing that she said, and I'm like, you have to make this the title of the podcast episode. Trauma is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep.
And she meant specifically being born into a cult. But like, that's such a perfect way of describing being re-traumatized and just having triggers. Trauma is the gift that keeps on giving because it's like grief, right? Which you could argue is trauma. Like you never fully get over it. There's no closure. It's just the thing you learn to live with.
Yep.
And people are not going to understand it sometimes. They're going to misperceive you or they're going to, hold that scarlet letter on you and you can't control that. And that's a lot of this session too, right? Is her relinquishing control and saying, okay, you guys even had a moment where you just sat in that for a second, like towards the end where she was just like, and there's nothing I can do about it, right?
Right.
And you're like, nope. And it sucks. And that's what it is.
One of the things that was bothering her so much about this, and she was saying like, if I did something wrong, then okay, I could be called on that. I could deal with that. I could do that. But this was something that happened to me.
Yes.
I didn't have any control over that. I love the line that she said, how can you victimize somebody for being victimized?
I had that one too. Yeah. And that's re-traumatization too.
Right.
And that's also part of her defense mode that she gets into more in the beginning, right? And I guess going full circle now, if we're going to go back to the beginning, I found what
you just said, like going into defense mode.
Yeah.
What I was giving her props for in how she was handling this whole situation.
Was not going into defense mode.
Right. Not going into
much.
that. Well, not going into justice warrior mode.
That's what it is, right? Because even when she said, I feel like I'm in justice warrior mode for myself, I like that. For a second, I totally bought into that. And I was like, fuck, that sounds so good. You're so right, Sarah. But I like you and your, of course, like language stuff. You fully honed into that. And you said, well, hold on, let's tweak that. Because I don't think you're actually being a justice warrior because you don't need to go to war here.
Right.
Like that really hit. Because I was like, oh yeah, like you just being open with your life. You're just being yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you picked up on that distinction. It's like, oh wait, justice warrior, but you don't have to go to war and you're not acting as though you're going to war right now.
Right. You're not showing up to the school saying, okay, everyone, fuck you. Here's my scarlet A. Like, yeah, I was born in a cult. What of it? You know, like you don't have to do that. You can just accept that people are going to misunderstand and say what they say and you can own whoever you are.
Yeah. And some of the people, like your daughter's best friend's mother,
Right.
you're going to call and like talk to.
Yeah. Sometimes it's
clear the air,
important. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
others, you're just going to go, yeah, they can think what they think. I can't control what somebody else
Right.
thinks about me.
Especially people who are on the peripheral or like, I don't have a relationship with, it doesn't affect other people in my life, really. Like, she's very concerned about this affecting her kids.
Right.
And obviously there's
Right.
a very close connection there. And I'm curious about your perspective on this, because I know you've talked about this with Sarah and Drew. Like, obviously part of this, the through line of this episode is like, okay, yeah, we know that you validated her feelings and you're validating everyone else's feelings around this. What about yours? Right? Huge shift in the session. Like, she needs to actually feel her own feelings too about this, because you can still be angry, even though you can't be maybe angry at her. You can validate and have empathy.
Right.
But yeah, you're angry. Like, oh my God, you're being triggered so hard right now, you know? Like,
Totally.
this is a shitty situation.
Well, can I be honest with you about something?
Please.
I love when people say that. Can I be honest with you about something?
And now it's like,
especially in therapy, you're like, what have you been doing?
I hope so. Yeah. My God.
When I was listening to this session and I was hearing all of this stuff,
Yeah.
I was in my head going, whoa, what about her feelings?
Yeah.
Dude, you better bring it back to her. Because she's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Like, that's how I was.
Wait, you were talking to yourself like that? Oh,
I was
interesting.
That's why, like,
Yeah.
it's funny. We've done a few of these breakdowns concurrently.
Yes.
If we were doing this and we paused at any point and you asked me something, I would probably be going, I hope I bring it back to her. Because wow.
It's letting her go. Yeah.
Right. Which is another thing we
though.
came to later, where I was like, oh, that's screaming into the pillow. That's hitting the punching bag.
Yeah.
You need to get some of this out. And remember, people listening, therapy is your place to let this stuff fly, to let it out. Arguably, people are hearing Sarah at her worst and her best.
Totally.
Right? We had listeners early on that got really offended with some of the things that Sarah said or how she said it.
Oh, really?
Like, well, it's her therapy session.
Yeah, you have to
You guys
be-
are getting
yeah.
a glimpse at something very, very private
And raw.
and
yeah.
raw, and the only place where you can do this completely non-judgmentally.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That's the point.
Right. So yeah, and a little meta, I was hearing myself judging me, going,
Totally. Yeah.
dude, you better bring it back to her feelings. What's going on?
Well, I think you did a wonderful job, because I was actually catching myself, another meta thing. I was catching myself when you would say something, I'd be like, oh yeah, shit. Oh my God. What about her feelings? Right. Like, I literally made a note that said, God, I love her sense of humor, because she was joking around about being all sarcastic, you know. Yeah, everyone just come join my sex cult, and just being so flippant and funny about it. And like, just the human in me listening to that, I just think that's funny. So I was laughing. I was like, God, I love her sense of humor. And then I was like, oh yeah, wait, but that is her defense mechanism, right? Because she's using humor to not have to be upset about it. And you said that, and you included it in the list of like some of our greatest hits, right? Like humor as a defense mechanism.
Enunciation. Using humor. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of enunciation, I found it really interesting, and I really questioned myself for a second, because I thought she was really enunciating when she was explaining things, especially when she was in that state of defense mode and wanting to understand, and she couldn't believe that this was happening.
So a couple of things. Sarah was raised outside of this country for a large part. So sometimes the way that she says words is more proper than we say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like when she says, I was beaten in the cult, she doesn't say it that way. She doesn't say I was beaten in the cult. She says I was beaten.
Yeah.
So she pronounces things correctly. That's not over enunciation. That's just enunciation.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So some of it is that. Some of it is also the manner in which she enunciated in the past was to be so clear that you could not possibly misunderstand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's different. She wasn't doing that. Is she still enunciating? Yeah, because she speaks well.
She does.
Right? Was she a little charged up? Yeah.
Yeah, that's maybe what I was
Was there some
hearing.
in there? Yeah, there was some in there. It didn't just go away. That's why I called, like, it's like Justice Warrior without the war. Right?
Yeah, because she's angry. She has feelings. She's still human.
Yes. When you get upset or when you get triggered, some of that stuff just comes out. To me, that's what was happening here.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, she is so guarded and so enunciating and making sure everything's clear and understood.
Sure,
It was almost the opposite. She was like, I'm open. I know where I am.
Yeah.
I'm cool. That's why I was even saying you're green bereting it. Like,
Totally.
yeah, no, I'm good. I know who I am. I'm cool. It's funny. I think she said it at some point, nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something that for her, she has used that like, it's such nonsense. It's nonsense. Why are they doing this? It doesn't make sense.
I don't
It's
get
nonsense.
it.
It's nonsense.
Make it make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was not that.
Yeah.
This was like, oh, they just got this wrong.
Yeah. Like just straight up.
Hang on, let me call her and just clear the air.
Yeah. It still hits me when you say it like that because it's so brave. I mean, courageous, I should say, right? Like, how do you not have anxiety or anger and emotion in that?
Well,
but
she
even
did.
in spite of that or
She
with
did.
that.
And that's where I think the courage and the bravery is.
Yeah,
it's doing
totally.
the thing that you're afraid of.
Yeah.
It's not being afraid of it. She was still clearly, we could hear it and we named it angry and frustrated.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Well, this brings me back to my question that I think I started all of this with and I never spit it out, but because, that happens. So we're yapping.
I didn't avoid it yet.
You did not avoid my question. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
You will, maybe.
Go ahead.
No, this is an easier one, maybe. I think we've talked about this before. I think I was saying, like, you talk about this with Drew, you talk about it with Sarah. Having the conversation, confronting somebody, when is it necessary versus when is it, I just handle this on my own internally.
Right. Yep.
But I think we kind of touched on it, like this affects her kids. Because at what point does it become like an anxiety control type of thing, right? Like I need to be in control of this narrative versus just I need to express how I feel.
What you're saying, like she didn't put on the Justice Warrior cape and go into the school going, okay, everybody, here's how it is, right?
Yeah.
That's different. And that's where you're right. I say to some people a lot, you don't need the other person in order to say this thing or deal with this thing. But here, it's something that does affect, not her. She didn't care as much for her. It affects my daughter, right? So how this mother has misinformation trickles down to her daughter, trickles down to my daughter. That affects her. Now it's a problem where I do feel a need. There is something necessary that I have to address. I said to her, there's a part 2 to this.
Yeah, I know. And you assumed, well, you're going to have to tell your kids.
Yes and no. I wasn't assuming that she would tell her kids. I was assuming that it probably came up for her. I wanted to see. Like, And she said, well, there's a part 2 to this. And she was like, I talked to her right afterwards. That's more, I think, what you're getting at.
I guess it did affect her kids because she had to talk to her kids about it. But that's the only way that it really affected them.
But this just shows Sarah's vulnerability and openness.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And she was protecting them early on. Like, I didn't need to drop this on them earlier. I didn't need to put that on them. I didn't want them to carry it. And I wanted to do it at a time when maybe they could understand what it is. And the funny thing is, maybe not quite with this, but often with parents and kids, when they're trying to protect their kid from something and they tell them, and they're so worried about how the kid might take it because it was traumatizing for the parent.
Of course.
The kid just goes, oh yeah, okay.
Okay,
right,
cool.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm fine.
Yeah, can I
It doesn't directly affect me, so I'm good.
Timmy now.
Yeah, I mean, kids, you're still a little egocentric. You only really care if it's directly affecting you, even though what we know of her daughter is that she is very empathetic. She says she's very sensitive.
Totally.
So she knew, like, if I tell her this information, she's going to care. She said she teared up a little bit. Of course.
Right.
They have a very close relationship. So I think there's no rights and wrongs, obviously, and you certainly didn't use that language, but you did multiple times say, I think you handled this really well and like with integrity. And I know that's a reflection of what you know of her and how she thinks she handled it, 'cause she's very proud of the way she handled it. It's not something I would have said maybe months ago isn't that you just giving her permission or like you being the authority figure here and telling her she handled a situation well? But now I see it more as you're just reflecting like her pride in her progress and like how she handled it. Because you can tell she likes the way she handled it.
Yeah. And I did ask her, which I'm not going to say 100%, but 99.9% sure she has thought about telling her kids before. Right.
Okay. That's
so
important
I said,
context. Yeah.
Had you made up your mind about how you were going to tell them?
Yeah.
Because this might be something where it could trigger a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Where I knew I was going to tell them and I wanted to tell them this way and this way. That's about control. And so now here comes this thing with my daughter's friend's mother. And now I have to tell her and it's throwing this way off. And she didn't.
It's not going according to plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that wasn't a part of this. That didn't phase her that way.
Okay, that's my next question then. In particular, the pre-planning, premeditated confrontation. So if you decide you are going to confront someone, is spending some time pre-planning, even maybe writing something out. Like, is that inherently ineffective or bad or wrong? Like, what's your take on that?
It's the dumb therapist take. It depends.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
I think.
Okay.
I'm very much on the spectrum towards the Green Beret end of things.
Yes.
I don't want to Boy Scout too much because I don't want you preparing all this stuff and going through all this stuff and getting ready and all this stuff. However, if you do that in therapy, we can bring out, well, what gives you anxiety there? What creates that? Or what are you worried about? What creates tension or stress? Let's talk about that and work through that. So it's sometimes useful to go through those what ifs with a therapist because you can see where certain emotions are getting triggered by something, right?
Yes. Yeah.
When you go into the moment, for some people, they want to I want to write a few notes so I can say it this way because here's how I want to say this and this makes me more comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. You can still
I've done that with clients.
Right. Totally. There's no problem with that. So it really depends on who the client is.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like saying, I can get up in front of a room full of people and just talk and say something. I don't necessarily need to write a speech and prepare it. I've given toasts at weddings and sometimes I prepare and sometimes I just go in like, here we go.
That's high skill.
Right?
That's very brat of you. Sorry, just bringing it back.
But not every person and not every client is going to feel comfortable doing that.
Not at all. Because the clients I'm thinking of where I have helped them kind of brainstorm and write a letter to somebody or write notes for something.
Let me collect my thoughts.
Yes. It's very much the very anxious and like physically anxious. Like they know that they're going to kind of break down, cry or freeze. And so they just want to have that safety net of the key points they really want to hit.
That's reminding me of when Sarah read her poem. Right? The eulogy for her t-shirt.
Yep.
It's one thing to write it, which was beautifully written, like a lot of great visualization there. But it was another thing for her to actually say it.
Totally.
Right?
Yep.
If I went, okay, put it away and just tell me about the poem. That's a whole other level because that's just saying what was the emotion behind it.
Right.
What was going on for you behind it.
Yeah, you're talking about it, not from it.
And not everybody can do that comfortably, right?
Most people, I'd say,
so if you need to
it,
write that poem, if you need to prepare a few things to say, okay, what I would want to work on with somebody is if they felt like they had to stick to the script. You know, if they were like
the rigidity.
Exactly. I've prepared what I need to say to my kid about growing up in a cult. Here it is. As long as they don't ask questions about here, I'm okay. Or let me just get this. Hang on. Wait. Let me just get this out.
The anxiety, you can just, it's palpable. I think I've done it twice now with clients of like preparing something. And we always make it a huge point while we're doing all the brainstorming that like this could go completely different. You know what I mean? Like this could be a completely different experience. Like we have to leave room for change or, you know, the unexpected.
Yeah.
So making sure that like that's also in place.
Well, especially sometimes we build something up so big. We're like, okay,
that too.
I've got to tell you something. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know.
Right. And you also don't want to be, as a therapist, the accomplice in building that anxiety, right? Of thinking like, yeah, this is going to be a crazy confrontation. So let's make sure it's perfectly executed.
To me, like I hear that and go, oh, so you're preparing for a confrontation. So you're already geared and you're looking for it. You're going to find it and you're going to create it.
Well, okay. I don't think confrontation inherently means that it's bad or negative or conflict, right?
I don't either.
Conflict is not like...
Right, but we're building something up. It might not be that big a deal.
We think it's going to be like a fight or an attack. Yeah.
Or it could be something where you go, hey, I want to talk to you about something and it's a really big deal to me. It's pretty emotional to me. And that prepares the other person for like, okay, then let me hear it and not react flippantly.
Right. Hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. Hopefully, if they are, you know, emotionally mature enough for that.
I know you are, but what am I?
Okay. Speaking of being reactive, towards the end, I think I mentioned this, there's quite a lot of you praising or saying something along the lines of like, you handled this really well. Right. And she's obviously very appreciative of that. And I've been in similar situations, of course, with clients where you really want to offer that validation and that positive reinforcement for the progress that they're making. And I often wonder, but are we also reinforcing this narrative that like you have to do it this way or I wouldn't have been proud of you or something like that? You know, like this is the right way to do it. And so it implies that like if Sarah had freaked out, right?
Yeah,
and gotten
if
very
you did it
reactive,
messy, don't talk to me about it.
Right. Like that would have been bad. Right.
Interesting.
I don't know. That's just the way that my brain goes. I'm like, I always like to add that in because I do this with clients a lot where I'll say, look, you clearly, like, I'm so happy you see how well you handled this and that you're proud of how you handled it. And that's why I'm proud of you, right? Because clearly you see the alignment there. Yeah. However, I also want you to know you could come in next week and have a full panic attack about this. And I'm here for that.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, great point.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with that 100%. And I think sometimes they might hold themselves to that standard in the same way that they'll be like, oh yeah, I heard your voice in my head as I was doing this. Like, okay. And the way that you've mentioned this, and we've talked about this, I say that that's their voice. It just takes on my sound.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still you.
Right.
Yeah.
So then if they're telling me something, I'm like, oh wow, you handled that beautifully. I'm reflecting that because that's how they're want saying it. To handle it. Right.
Right.
Sometimes they'll come in and they'll be like, oh God, this did not go well. Here's what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't ever go, well, yeah, you didn't handle that the way you wanted to.
Right, right. How disappointing.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. They're the ones that will gauge when they're outside of their integrity or authenticity or when something didn't go quote unquote well.
Right. You can tell the way that they're evaluating it or interpreting it.
Right. To me, there was something huge towards the end here, which is
the double-sided t-shirt.
Well, yeah, that was cool.
Oh, I thought you would love that.
No, go ahead.
No, that was.
Keep praising me. This is great.
Wait, did I add anything towards the end here?
There was something she said that I thought was great. When
being victimized again, re-traumatized. I was kind of thinking the only way out is through. I don't know where that came from though. No, I don't know what happened. What I miss?
It was the trauma survivor thing.
Oh yeah, that's huge. But I feel like she's mentioned that before. No. Maybe that was
but here she said something like, you know, when I first started therapy and you said trauma survivor and I had a big reaction, like, now, like, there's still like an element and I can embrace that. But, you know, what she was saying was like, I know we're going to need to go deeper into that. I was actually traumatized. And I think she even said brutalized.
She said brutalized. And she said the word victim too, which actually really struck me because saying you're a trauma.
Did not like that word at first.
And saying trauma survivor has the air of like strength, right? And that is so much more comfy for her, I think, than actually calling herself or identifying with being a victim.
That's why she didn't like the phrase trauma survivor at first, because she was like, oh, I don't like thinking that I'm a victim or that. But this was in the context of this session. She said earlier, how can you victimize somebody for being victimized?
Yes.
So she's saying, wait, I was a victim. Like it happened to me.
Because Sarah often does that, right? People who have experienced trauma, like one of the defense mechanisms is kind of like overly externalizing it and talking about it in the general you sense, right? Or the general I, instead of really saying like, this happened to me.
Right. She's personalizing it, which you're right. We worked on that a lot.
Yeah,
like, don't make it her, don't make it that, make it me.
It's you.
And she's making this about control. It's not about weakness. Saying victim before was weakness. I don't want to say that. But saying, oh, I was victimized, it just happened to me. I didn't control that. I didn't choose this.
Yeah, you were
If
a victim.
I chose this, that'd be different. And you could tell everybody at school that I chose to be an adulteress, right? Then sure. But I didn't choose this. It happened to me. So she's owning it that way, which I thought was huge for her.
Totally. Yeah. This whole session was such a, what do you call them? Mile marker.
Sure.
Of the progress she's made. I think she felt it too. And that's always the most beautiful thing is when you're not the one just offering like, you know, empty praise or something, right? That's falling on deaf ears. Like she brought it in. She led with the integrity and the values that she has, right? And that she's just embodying. You said that word and that really hit me too, right? Because you wouldn't have said all of that stuff at the end, the praise, the positive reinforcement, if she wasn't just naturally living it now, right? It wasn't forced.
To me, again, me saying it is her needing to hear it from herself through me. Right. You know, and even when I said, the word I used was grace. You handled this with such grace. And she went, well, that means a lot to me.
Yeah, she did.
And that's like, oh, right. I'm taking that in. I'm not just going to dismiss it.
I love her. She's so great.
That was great.
Final question. Is it okay? Do we have time for one more, Doug, please?
We have time for one more question. Okay, caller, go ahead.
Me. Hi, my name's Kenzie.
Yes.
I have a question. You were very direct when you said, hey, stop. Take a breath. Take a breath. Not with the vape. Put the vape down. No, take a real breath. You were very, you know me, I think I'm a little hypervigilant with the whole like authoritative thing and like you telling her what to do. So I'm curious if that was just an impulsive thing for you or if you had any second thoughts about that or if it feels right to you, like anything there. It's such a little thing, but it's still, and I know it comes from a very caring place, obviously. It's therapeutic to take a freaking deep breath without the vape, but the way that you said it, I'm like, ooh, it was so direct, right? Like, put the vape down.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
See?
Right.
That puts my hackles up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about it.
Because it struck me at my core, like with a little fear.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like, oh, fuck, I have to like listen to this person. And that's the cult thing that I worry about with her.
So part of that, though, is disrupting a pattern.
Yes.
Right.
I know.
Is breaking
yeah.
something. It's a CBT technique. Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to stop
familiar.
something and break the pattern.
Yeah.
Did I do like right then with you? Did I do it well? No.
No, that was a bit much.
Yeah.
You didn't do it like that with her.
No, not at all.
That struck fear in me. And I
Right.
don't think she felt fear with
Right.
you.
Like I don't mind making you fearful of me in that moment because we're highlighting a point.
Because it's funny and I'm a victim. I'm a victim of your sense of humor.
But in the moment with her,
Yes.
I could see her. I even said it. I see you ramping up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So hang on.
Yes.
And in the moment, I want to acknowledge it. Had I said, hang on, I want to try something. Like in the moment, I can see you wrapping up. We're going to do a little CBT here. So instead of ramping up, can you put the vape down? Can you actually take, it would have taken us out of the actual moment. It's too much.
Okay.
So I just did something quick and directive.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I called it in some way, like, hey, wait, take a breath. We're going to slow this down a little bit. We're going to slow your system down. I didn't just go, wait, take a breath. Okay, good. Now carry on.
No, you did. Because you said, I see you ramping up. You said that after you said, okay, hold on, take a breath. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Those are all my questions.
Well, if you guys have any questions, you can email us at info@yourmentalbreakdown.com. You can call Kenzie directly at 867-5309.
You really want people to call me.
I wonder if that.
What's up with that?
They blocked that from being anybody's number.
That number?
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
I wonder if that's out there and if somebody can actually have that number now.
There's no area code on it, though.
You can do it in every area code.
Oh, really?
Until you find somebody and go, hey, is Jenny there?
Jenny,
I got your number.
Oh, that's actually, wait, okay,
86753. Yeah, it's Jenny's number.
Whoa. But they made that up, obviously, right? Can you imagine making a song
it might
about
be somebody's name. Yeah, it might be.
You think that was her actual number?
Could be.
That's a crazy thing to do. But okay,
Sure.
yeah, a rock star in like the 80s, 70s, I'm sure it could have happened.
I mean, you're so vain, you probably think this song is about
so
you.
Vain. Wait, that's not how it goes. Wait, hold on. I know how that goes. You're so vain. There it is. That took me a second.
You probably think this song is about you.
Probably think this song is about you, about you. Okay, cool. So bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.